All right, NFL Week 8 is upon us, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Alex. That's Mike. Welcome to Stupid versus the Spread. We're going to talk Week 7 roundup for NFL, as well as some important discussion about the trade deadline, which is November 1st. And then we'll get into this week's preview and talk about our picks. Pretty much the only storyline aside from trade news. A lot of legacy quarterbacks, guys who you really consider top tier, are struggling this year. Matt Ryan benched as of this week on the Colts. He will maintain that position, it sounds like, as the backup quarterback for the remainder of the season. I think anyone that's watched Rodgers and Brady play in the past couple weeks has seen that they're really struggling. And then Wilson, obviously not the toppest of tiers, as they've come to realize in the past couple weeks. The Broncos. Who do you think? Who shocks you the most, Mike? That has performed like the worst?
Um, I think it's Rogers, and it's because of his play, and I guess this kind of goes back to like what I've been saying this whole year, in that it feels like there's been something seriously wrong with Brady and the Bucks and that
Mm-hmm.
locker room dynamic. And I have been saying that like Matt Ryan, we all saw the writing on the wall that Matt Ryan wasn't that good in Atlanta. I think
Yeah,
Atlanta was sort of right to move on from him when they did, but
and the I hate. Sorry for interjecting. The
yeah,
Colts' offensive line is just not cutting the mustard, to put it nicely. They are very, very bad this year. Matt Ryan, obviously an aging quarterback, tough to scramble. So it's no shock to me that he is struggling pretty hard in that offense.
yeah, I also like. There's a conversation to be had about whether or not both Ballard and Reich get fired after this year.
Wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, which is crazy because everybody loves Chris Ballard, but um, the but Rogers, I felt this whole year like at some point he was going to turn this thing around and they were going to play better, and I think it just, I guess it shouldn't shock me because he's a stubborn son of a bitch and he is not willing to work with these guys. It seems like to lower his work or to increase his work ethic to get on the same page with them,
Uh,
and I think I think he's been stubborn in the way. I think there's bigger issues there too with he's not comfortable in LaFleur's offense. LaFleur won't run more simple pre-snap concepts that get him more comfortable. So there's just like an entire organizational offensive clusterfuck going on. But I think even still, you expect Rodgers to at least make the throws. And early in the season, it felt like he was, and they just weren't catching him. There was
mhm.
miscommunication. Now it just feels like he's not even making those throws. He's not getting to those reads. He's not taking risks to try to play his way out of this. Um, so I think that's probably the most surprising thing is how they just haven't been able to fix this.
Yeah, I would say Ryan probably aging combined with a bad O line is not surprising. Although you would like to see him go out maybe on a little bit of hot streak because he's a great quarterback. Brady also not terribly surprising. His wide receiver core is not what it once was. He's obviously missing Gronk, his favorite. Wilson, I think everybody kind of got bamboozled because you always heard let Russ cook, blah blah blah, blah. And maybe the Broncos are just as bad as the Seahawks were, and the scheme is just as bad. And it probably doesn't help you have a first year head coach that I believe was kind of defensive oriented.
No, he
If
was an
I'm
offensive
he
guy,
was
but
okay.
yeah, but you have to wonder how many of those like bonehead calls that the Packers made while he was offensive coordinator actually you know,
Yeah, hey, that going
um,
for that field goal is always
yeah,
a popular throwback.
yes. So there's that, and then I think Dan Graziano was quoted in a like athletic headline that Nathaniel Hackett's job could be on the line this week in London,
Jesus.
which is crazy. And he even said, he was like, they took this out of context, and I don't actually believe this. They were just using this as clickbait.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Um,
why not get some clicks
yeah,
in,
yeah,
brother?
but I still think it's funny that the fact that that's even like a headline that people would believe is indicative of how well things have gone in Denver so far this year, and that they might become sellers, and that some of their other, some of their pieces might be available. is surprising. Yeah.
I was gonna say I think Rodgers shocks me the most because you thought with young receiving core or maybe not as an experienced one, they'd still be able to have that great defense, run the ball well, and play smart football with Rodgers at the helm. Um, it just doesn't seem like that's coming together. And what's shocking to me is that I think it's more on not Rodgers and not really the players, but like in the history of Rodgers being in that organization, I think they've drafted one first round wide receiver for him. Like if Rodgers is really that good and you're a team that's striving to better yourself, maybe always going for everything else other than the biggest best weapons for Rodgers was a stupid mistake. And it seems like one that they've made over and over and over again. And now you're talking about like, oh, this guy he's got a young receiving core or like an inexperienced one. It's like, no, they're just not good. Like, sure, they're young, but they're, like Washington has a young receiving core, but they have Terry McLaurin and Johan Dotson, and they're weapons that
De'Ami
they
Brown looks like a hit in the second round, who I think went before. Who did the Packers took somebody that year too that
yeah.
hasn't really played. I forget who.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like if it's 1 year or 2 years that you're not getting Rogers weapons, that's one
Yeah.
thing. But and not to make this like a Packers talk show, but on the other hand, like maybe you should have drafted a single receiver for him, like at
Yeah.
some point.
Or like fire the scout who's not hitting on those. Like because if you're
Yeah,
if you're drafting like the Steelers, you don't need to invest in first round picks. Like
yeah, no, that's fair.
if you can keep hitting on receivers in the second or fourth round over and over and over again the way they have, and now like some people may say that hasn't happened as much recently, but I don't think that the Steelers wide receivers of the product are necessarily bad. Like even guys like Chase Claypool, who hasn't played up to the potential he showed as a rookie,
Hmm.
he's not bad. He's just not playing with good quarterbacks, and that goes back to the way Ben played at the end of his career. So
Yep.
at some point and maybe they have. I'm not well enough versed on the hirings and firings of the Packers scouting department either, but maybe they have tried to get better and just haven't been able to hit. But at some point, you've got to get them better weapons, and I think they tried to address that this year with I think a third and a fifth in Watson and Dobbs, but now. This is a team that's built to win now, and you can't count on rookies being the biggest contributors immediately to win now.
Yeah,
And
and especially if you're not taking an explosive first round wide receiver, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
there's a chance that guy produces, but
yeah,
asking a third and a fifth rounder to produce at the upper tier echelon of with Aaron Rodgers is tough.
yeah.
It's a big ask. Anyway, so I think that's what surprises me most. I don't think many of the legacy quarterbacks that we've seen have been playing very well, and I don't think that's. I think it's shocking to everybody, but maybe not so shocking as you kind of look at it from a large scale perspective. Um, the other real big news for this coming week, usually we do news from the past week, but this is pretty predictable. So, trade deadline is November 1st, as we've discussed. There's buyers and sellers, much like baseball. So, teams that think they can win now, make a run at the playoffs, will typically trade away their picks for better players, and then teams that are not doing so well in position to succeed for the second half of the year. And we are basically looking at the second half of the year now. Will typically sell their best players, i.e., trade them for picks later down the road and hope for a rebuild. So as of today, James Robinson's been traded to the Jets. Robert Quinn from the Bears to the Eagles. He's a defensive end. And obviously McCaffrey from the Panthers to the 49ers. He's already started to make an impact, although the 49ers did kind of get their ass kicked the second half of that game last week. Mike, who do you think team wise should be like? Give me two or three top teams that should be sellers, and then who in your mind are they selling, or who should be buying those players?
So I'm looking up and down the standings now. I think the NFC West, pretty much everybody's in it. You can't be a seller in that division currently.
I would agree
Um,
with that.
the Bears already are because they've sold Quinn. I don't know that they dump Roquan, although Roquan Smith finding out in the press conference today is just a brutal look for the Bears. And just disorganized
Does it
or dysfunctional
surprise you?
organizations do dysfunctional things.
Yeah.
That was a complete dysfunctional organization move to not tell the guy you're about to send out no presser that this trade got done is bananas. And um, and so like the Bears may have to move Roquan Smith because there's he already said he's not resigning. He's playing, but they haven't done anything. Presumably, now we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but they haven't done anything presumably that would make you say that their relationship's been repaired at all. Um, uh, the Lions, you could say yes, but I'm working in the reverse order, so starting with the NFC West. But who do you sell because that team's already so young?
Hmm.
You're not selling pieces off the offensive line. You don't really have veteran skill position players or higher impact guys that you can really dump. The Saints could get interesting with some of their defensive pieces.
Yep.
If the only problem for them is they're only a game out, despite the fact that they're 2-5. So,
I
like,
think I think the philosophy there has to be you look where you are now and whether you think you can actually make a run, not just get in the playoffs. And I think if you're the Saints, you have to answer honestly and say that you're probably not a caliber team that's going to make it past the wild card.
yeah, I think the bigger problem for the Saints too is they don't have draft picks. The Eagles have all their draft picks.
Right. So
So
this might be a chance to buy some of those back, having
yeah,
not produced where you
yeah,
wanted
and
to.
if you're it sucks to say that you're dumping. Maybe that's a guy like a Cam Jordan, but he's been there forever and is like one of the faces of that franchise. So they have some, and maybe they're just a quarterback away from being good because the defense is still good. The offense just hasn't been, that good. Um, so maybe there. I mean, nobody. I think that the Commanders are in sort of a similar spot to the Lions in that they don't really have a lot of veteran. You would know better than I would, but veteran pieces to deal. I think they're in a spot
No,
to
not
deal
really.
based on where they are in their division. They're in.
I mean, you would not that they're going to, and certainly don't want to. I would say the names that come to mind are William Jackson, who is still on the injured list, and maybe Allen or Payne up front. But that's like the core of
Yeah, see,
the
that's the
reason
thing
they
is
win.
you try not to trade if you're unless you don't have any pieces around a unit, you don't break up a unit for no real reason.
Right, and I would granted a little bias here, but I would say Washington probably has a top five defensive front
Yeah, and
in Allen Payne.
if you know you can only afford to pay three of those guys, then maybe it is Payne because you assume Chase Young is going to play football again at some point.
Yeah,
So if
yeah.
you assume that, then the other guys up front, assuming they all pan out the way that they're capable of playing, you have Chase Young, Montez Sweat, and Jonathan Allen are the three guys out of the four that if you can only pay three of them, you're keeping. So Payne probably is gone by process of elimination. Um,
Maybe, but he performs very well. I think if I'm Washington, I'm probably selling William Jackson, who's cornerback. He's already requested a
maybe there's
trade,
an
and
argument to be made that Chase Young's not the guy you pay.
we'll see when he comes back from injury. Let's not let's not
But
project too far.
I'm just saying. Now, I'm not saying trade him this year,
I know, I know, I know.
but I'm saying maybe he's not the guy to pay. I think the Patriots might get interesting if they lose to the Jets this week.
I don't think they should necessarily be sellers, but I don't hate that call as long as you acknowledge you might. Like, at what point are you transitioning coaches? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, but I don't
at
like.
what
Yeah,
point
that's a
does
conversation you got to have with Bill. But
yeah?
and also they're usually not movers during the season. Besides Revis, I think they got in the middle of the year, but that was a buying, not selling situation. And and like they don't have that. I go back to they don't have that many pieces to move. So um, I don't see the Broncos as sellers. The Raiders are
I,
not really in a spot to deal.
so I see the Browns, Steelers, and Texans kind of as the biggest sellers, and maybe Broncos if you truly want a hard reset. Um, but also are keeping Wilson. Um, like of note, I think Kareem Hunt and Chase Claypool are probably the two biggest names that we'll see going forward. Um,
Yeah,
Possibly being traded. Right, Hunt's in his last year of his contract. He doesn't want to extend. He doesn't like the Browns, and Claypool is like he's a great Steeler, right? And they love him there, but I don't know that the Steelers shouldn't be sellers. And if they are going to be, Chase might be that perfect medium of has been in the league, has proven himself, but probably doesn't have more than 5 more years to his next contract.
no, he's
Um,
got two, and I think he's got
well,
2 more
so he's a
years, and
year and a
then
half. I'm
he'll get
saying
his
like,
5th year option.
yeah, but like
Or
how
no, no,
many?
no, he'd be a free agent. 2 years from now, he'd be a free agent because there's
Right.
no fifth
So,
year for second
so
round.
So sorry, my point was not how much time does he have left on the Steelers contract. It's how much time does he have left in the NFL? Because
Yeah, yeah.
he's in his rookie contract now, and I'm not saying he's injury prone or anything, but
No.
wide receivers don't last until their 40s. So at one point, do you hit that point where you're like, okay, we can trade this guy for great picks, or we can hold on to him and hope to produce, and maybe it doesn't come to fruition.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think for them, if Pickett might be a guy, you hold on to him because then you have 3 wide receivers on low cost deals. I was thinking
I don't think Pickett's the guy.
maybe not, but we'll see. I think it's still too early, but um, I think you more look on the defensive side of the ball and what you can replace through the draft versus what you can give up now. Um, for the Steelers, Texans, Jags, the Colts, maybe like the Colts might be a team that could.
Yeah, but didn't they sell a lot to get Matt Ryan?
Well, that's the thing is like they need if they're really gonna tear it down, they're gonna need draft capital to move up in the draft because they're
Yeah.
not bad enough right now to suck their way into the top 10 unless things really fall apart. So if that's the case, they need draft picks. So um,
Jerry Judy, I think, from the Broncos also. I think the Broncos will be sellers, to be honest with you. I don't think
I
that.
I can't with the like I would say that ordinarily, but knowing that the Waltons just bought that team, um, it makes it less likely because I just don't know. I don't
They
know
have
that
the
they're going
stomach
to
for a
want the
rebuild right away.
yeah. I just don't see them wanting the optics of we just took over, we just paid Russ all this money, and now we're just going to start tearing it down to rebuild already. Like it just I think they give it a year no matter what. I think they ride with the team they have. They if this year finishes the way that it started, they chalk it up to turnover and new guys coming in, and they just think it's going to get better next year. I have a hard time seeing them really, just sell, especially because I think they run into the same problem where the guys that they would give up are pieces that are still on rookie deals with multiple years left that would be good players. So they don't have the 1 year rental sort of contracts left to really hand off to somebody else. And granted, those only fetch 5th and 6th round picks, but that's really what you're looking to do. You're trying to flip that guy for a player who's going to
Hmm.
cost you nothing, and clear up cap space to go sign somebody else who's going to be an impact player. So it yeah, we'll see. I don't expect too much more movement, and it's got to happen this week because the deadline's on Tuesday, and you figure those guys got to be in the door, before the end of the weekend or before the weekend starts. You would think. So I would
Or at
expect.
least a guarantee that they're not playing, and then you receive a guy on Sunday or Monday, and he's coming off an injury that's maybe not
Yeah,
disclosed, or
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You don't want to. If you're a team that's looking to get a guy, you want to get him now before they play again and possibly get hurt, and that's a way more of a risk in a sport like football as opposed to baseball, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I think you see some reservations about playing some guys that are like coming off injury that teams want to trade. I think the Washington player I mentioned, the cornerback, probably a prime example, right? Where he's like coming off injury, but probably could play, but has said he wants to trade. So you probably just trade him and you don't play him,
Mm-hmm.
because they'll have to do a physical anyway and pass the
Yeah,
team physical. So it's not like you can sneak it by. But
yeah,
anyway, I think we've talked a little bit about the trade deadline. I'm excited to see what happens. I think we've kind of seen glimpses of who are sellers already. I'll be interested to see who um, comes out maybe on top there at the end.
Hmm.
Um, you want to get into our week preview?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, so the Chiefs and Chargers are on a bye. Stinks because they're decent teams, although Chargers certainly probably need it. Um, we get our four teams back from bye. It was Eagles, Bills, and two others from last week. I'm not going to strain myself to think about it, but let's start talking about actual football played this week. Ravens at Buccaneers. Over unders 45 and a half. The Ravens, honestly, depending on what book, I see multiple books here on this great app that I use called Action App. No free ads though. Where it kind of flip flops between Ravens and Bucks plus 1.5. So really, if whoever you like, you can get them for positive points. But basically, this is a pick 'em more or less. Do you have any leans or any picks for this one, Mike?
Uh, I I like the over here,
Okay.
which
Prime time over. I like it.
seems yeah. I think here's the reasoning being primetime unders. I think are going to start to have to turn the other way. I think the books are realize that the public's onto them, and so they're going to start setting the lines somewhat low. Um, Lower than they would be. And PFF has the value here on the over. The splits, public cash, are pretty much 50-50. 61% of the tickets are on the under, which tells you that the public is still betting primetime unders. But the, I think I think game wise, besides like the psychological game you're playing with the book, is that the defenses have not played well recently, both of them. Um, Now you could say Tampa Bay's offense has not been good, but Baltimore's defense has been not good at all the whole year, especially in the fourth quarter. When you add that up, I think this is a good spot for Tampa Bay to at least score enough to help with the number, and then Baltimore should do their part, even against a fairly good defense, to help get you there. And you only need 23 points a team to get over the total. So I like the over here. I think this you could see this as like a 27-24 sort of game. Close game that should come down to the end. I think scoring through the fourth quarter, especially with the Ravens defense who can't stop anybody in the fourth quarter, gets you to the number. So I don't know who's going to win. I think Baltimore probably wins, but I like the over to hit here.
I don't hate that. Uh, I actually have a first half pick here.
Mm.
Um, so, like we've said, the Ravens have not performed well in the second half, specifically the fourth quarter. They've blown way too many leads, way too many times. The Bucks don't look great. We've been talking about it for a while. They've gone on a tear of a couple losses here, not looking hot. Typically losing to teams that they've beaten. They're 1-4 in their last five. However, so I'm going to take the Ravens first half. They open up explosive. The first half, by the way, is like a pick 'em, or the Ravens are plus 0.5. So
Mm.
I'm going to take a money line, maybe 0.5 to see if they tie. Actually, I'll take the 0.5. I just talked myself into it. Anyway, Baltimore comes out. They've typically played well in the first half. I think they're injury riddled, but not enough to to have the Bucks stop them enough. I think Baltimore at least is tied at the half, if not winning. And then we don't know after that, right? They have a history of allowing many points to be scored in the second half, so that's what I'm going to go with. Um, all right, so that's Thursday football. Let's talk. Well, first we have a London game. Broncos at Jags. Broncos are plus 2.5. Jags are minus 2.5. Over unders 39.5. Mike, do you have anything for this one?
No, public is on Jacksonville. Money's on Denver. I I don't have anything here. The under is the heavy bet here. 79% of the tickets, 95% of the book. So all of these again from PFF. So it it screams low scoring, terrible sort of game that normally
Hmm.
happens in London.
Well,
Russ,
not this year. Not this year. The Lunders are 2-0 on the over this year. I bet them
uh,
both under, and they
yeah,
both
Russ is
special.
yeah, that the whole thing about him not
High,
pooping
doing
today.
high knees on the
Yeah,
plane.
and doing high knees on the plane. I don't know. Like we talked about this. We talked about this after Kyle Brandt went on his rant about how he's like an inauthentic person, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I also just think he's crazy. Like I just think he's a psycho, which makes him inauthentic in that he does all these ads and spots where he tries to seem normal and like funny. But I do think he's a genuine like nut job. Um, and the only reason I bring that up is because like he's got us. Like at what point does has he completely lost the locker room? Possibly. When does like if this keeps happening? When does he completely lose the locker room? It can't be far off. Um, so and I think the only problem there is that and the only reason why it hasn't happened already is that his deal and his numbers and his play right now makes him completely unmovable, and they have nobody else to go to. Like Brett Rippon can't be your long term starter, and they have no like fifth round rookie who's going to come in and do anything. So like. I think that's the only saving grace for Russ and the Broncos right now from total dysfunction is the fact that they don't have another option. Um, so I add all that up and say at some point you think Russ is going to have a good game. I don't know if it's this one. I'm not willing to put any money on it in Virginia and not North Carolina because it's illegal in North Carolina. So yeah, I don't, nothing here.
I don't have anything here either. I mean, I might sneak in and take the Broncos with the points, hoping that this is the breakout game. But I don't have anything here. I think these games are screwy half the time because the time difference, and it doesn't feel normal waking up at 6 in the morning to watch football. So I'm gonna leave this one alone. I agree. Okay, moving on to our 1 p.m. slate. So, in no particular order, we have Steelers at Eagles, where Steelers are 10.5 point underdogs. Patriots at Jets. Jets are 2.5 point underdogs. Panthers at Falcons. Falcons are favored by about 4. It varies by book. Raiders at Saints. Raiders are -1.5. Bears at Cowboys. Cowboys are -9. Dolphins at Lions. Lions are 3.5 point underdogs, and Cardinals at Vikings, where Vikings are favored by 3.5. Mike, run me through your 1 p.m. card.
So I've only got two plays in the 1 p.m. window. I like
Ooh.
Atlanta -4.5 at home against the Panthers. I think the Panthers this was their interim bump win against the Bucks. They came out and played a team that's been totally dysfunctional, and they looked competent without McCaffrey. I don't think that's going to happen 2 weeks in a row. Um, and I think the Panthers are still a bad team. I think the Falcons say what you want about whether or not they're talented and they're in the middle of a rebuild, but they play hard and they play solid football every single time. I think no, there isn't a quarterback on Carolina's roster that can do to them what Joe Burrow did to them last week. So, and they've been solid in every other game. Remember, we're only a week removed from them like dominating San Francisco at home.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you add all that up, this 4.5 doesn't seem like a lot, and I think the public bias is on Carolina after beating Tampa Bay last week. So I would say, and Vegas agrees with me because right now public tickets are 51% on Carolina, but the cash is 75% on Atlanta. Um, so I'm taking Atlanta -4.5, and the other one I'm taking Detroit +3.5. Trying to learn a lesson here from earlier in the season. Um, Detroit is going to keep playing into these games and try to backdoor these games no matter what. Miami's the better team and should win this game, even though it's at Detroit. Um, but I think Detroit's offense can't continue to stink as bad as they've stunk the past few weeks. Miami's defense is good, but Miami wasn't particularly impressive into his first game back against the team they should have really beaten up on, and they didn't cover versus the Steelers. So I think Miami wins, but I think this ends up being a field goal game late, just because Detroit. I think Dan Campbell is starting to feel the pressure because the you know shine of Hard Knocks and him biting ankles or kneecaps or
Hmm.
whatever he said is starting to wear off. Um, so you say that, and maybe this is the game where they finally start the process of quitting on him, but I'm willing to bet that this game coming home, they at least make this one competitive. They may win it outright. I don't think so. I think with Tua, Miami's just a way better team. But I'm going to take them plus 3.5. I don't love it. It's sort of a hold your nose sort of pick, because I do think Miami's the better team. But I'm going to take Detroit. And this is another one where Miami is the 71% popular pick with the public, but the cash is 54% on Detroit. So not an overwhelming split that you like to see when you're trying to back up your logic with what the heavy bettors are doing, but I have a feeling Detroit keeps this one close and they may win it, even though I think Miami's definitely the better team.
I don't hate that. I am on the opposite side. I have Dolphins minus 3.5. I think Tua can come out and put up a couple points on the Lions.
Yeah, and like I said, it's
This
a
might transition to the over. By the way, I'm flagging it right now. I might not put in Dolphins minus 3.5. I don't hate your logic. 51's a lot of points to cover, but I kind of want to be the addict that throws money down on over 51.5. So I lean that way.
Vegas agrees with you. 75% of the cash on the
Ooh,
over.
I love it. So here's my card for the 1 p.m. slate. Steelers plus 10.5. The Eagles have covered these massive spreads so far, um, and I just don't know that Tomlin is the guy that they're going to cover against again. Granted, the Bills won in a 14-point spread against the spread a couple weeks back, but I think the Bills are far and away the best team in the NFL and also better than the Eagles. I think they beat them 9 out of 10 times. So I'm going to go with Steelers plus 10.5 there. I'm also going to take the Jets money line. I think the Jets have been playing well. I know they've just lost their star running back, but after what I saw in the second half of the Patriots, maybe it's reactionary, but I think you could get two different quarterbacks with the Pats at any given time. I think the Jets have momentum. I know people don't think momentum is a real thing. I do. I'm taking Jets money line, even though they're 2.5-point underdogs. I also like Raiders money line. The Saints are bad. The Raiders still have something to play for. There's a lot of pride in that team. It's a tough smash mouth football team. I think the Raiders come out on top. Bears plus 9.5. This is a risky play, but one I'm willing to wager. 9.5 is a lot of points. If the Bears keep momentum from last week, where I think they impressed everybody beating the Pats the way they did as 9-point dogs, I think they can come out on top. I talked about the Dolphins, and then finally, actually, I apologize. That is my 1 p.m. card. Those 5 picks.
Do you want do you want my Jet fan analysis
I
on?
would love it.
So
Is
I
this the one
hate
that you never
I
win?
hate where this line is. I'm not touching it with a 10-foot pole, and here's why. This is a metaphorical game of the very stoppable force versus the very movable object. Um, Jets momentum is the very stoppable force here because the Jets are always teetering on implosion somehow. And as a Jet fan, you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Now, the very stoppable force part of this is that New England has not looked anything like a shell of themselves or like they have been in recent years. So but the you go back to the Jets' momentum, and who is the person that always stops that very stoppable force? It's Bill Belichick. So, like that's why I this line is perfectly set because the logic says the Jets have a ton of momentum. NFL, you always fade what happened last week. New England look like crap. The Jets look great. The key is bet New England. Problem here is everybody thinks that right now,
Yeah,
and
the
and the splits
percentage of the money and tickets are both
money,
on.
yeah, tickets and money both say pick New England, and the line's moving that way too. So it becomes at what point do you go against the line and how far? Like, if this gets to 3.5, I think the Jets are the play. But am I going to sit here and say with any confidence that the Jets actually cover that? Absolutely not, because it's the Jets and it's Bill Belichick. So, like, I add all that up to say I wouldn't touch the spread, go anywhere near it, nothing, because I have no idea how this game. Maybe this is the time. Maybe Salah's team is playing well enough. Maybe these guys are all brand new to the point where they don't have that they don't have that jet stink on them
Mm-hmm.
yet. And people bring up a good point that the new uniforms have helped subconsciously, because it's just like it doesn't look like the same team that has just suffered through all that misery. So it's it's there's so much going on here that I say don't touch this line.
I'm taking a money line. I don't care about the spread. I think they're going to win this game. Okay, let's move on to our 4 p.m. slate. So I'm technically following your rules. Don't touch the spread. I'm just taking a money line.
Yeah, way to spin that into that one.
Thank you. Okay, so we got 4 p.m. games or 4:30 games. So Titans at Texans. Titans are 2.5 favorites. Commanders at Colts. Commanders are 3-point underdogs. We also have 49ers at Rams, where the Rams are 1-point underdogs, and Giants at Seahawks, where the Giants are 3-point underdogs, which is kind of a rat line there. Mike, go ahead, run me through your card for the 4 p.m. slate. Because I have picks. I have 4 picks for 4 games, which
I've
is
got
wild.
3 for 4.
Okay,
So
so
I'm
we're on
with,
the same page. We see. Let's see if we
yeah.
match up here.
So I'm going to start with your team, the Commanders. I'm going to take them +3 against Indy.
Yep.
Um,
Run me through your logic. I have the same pick, so run me through your logic. I'll run you through mine. I know that
well,
way we're good.
so I'll start with what I always start. Vegas thinks the same thing. 72% of the cash, 66% of the tickets on Washington. So the betting favorite is Washington. So besides that, um, I'll give you 3 things. You have quarterback in his first start behind a bad offensive line, playing a really good defensive line.
Yeah,
That's
that
it.
was literally my
That's
that was my
that's the
entire
only
argument.
logic I have.
Sprinkle
But
a
there
little
is,
Taylor Heineke on top. You know, he's
yeah,
got a little
exactly.
swag.
Spring, yes, exactly. We are in lockstep here. It's Taylor Heineke. It's not Carson Wentz. So he's going to play with more logic and less emotion going back to Indy. Washington's a play. That's all I need to say.
Yeah, 100% agreed. I mean, I won't even speak to it, but yeah, I mean, Commanders' front four is outstanding. Chase Young's not coming back just yet, but even if he's not, you know, that front four, really that front seven is going to wreak havoc on. And God love him, but a quarterback who at Texas did not inherently impress me at all times.
No, absolutely not. Moving on, Tennessee -2 at Houston.
Yep, same pick. For
Yeah,
the record, we did not discuss these picks before the show started,
no,
so like this
no.
is
I think we're
genuine.
just, and we're both seeing the board well too,
Yeah,
especially for NFL this year. So 6-2 last week, 59% on the year. So I don't like to brag about myself, but that's not terrible for a show that is premised on us being suckers. So
that's fair.
yeah, Houston's +2. I know this is the square pick, and that's what Vegas says right now. 70% of the tickets are on Tennessee. I don't care. Houston's bad. Like, and the cash is 50-50, so even Vegas is not confident that Houston's going to cover this by any means. It's a pick 'em, basically. It's inside of a field goal. And Tennessee's a 2-point favorite, or Houston's a 2-point favorite. Why? Because they're at home. Or sorry, 2-point dog because they're at home. If this was
Basically,
in if this was in Tennessee, it would be a 4-point spread at least. Tennessee has some momentum. They found something. They're doing it quietly without anybody noticing, but it's starting to turn into Derrick Henry weather. I get this game's in a dome in Texas, but the point still stands. Um, Houston's not a difficult place to play. Houston is not a good team. Take Tennessee here. It's not going to be a high scoring game. They're not. They probably don't dominate, but they win this game by at least 2 points.
I concur. Derrick Henry runs well, typically mid to late season when guys are less willing to get hit. In my mind, I don't know if that's true, but I think it has less to do with weather and more that you're getting worn down over the course of a couple of weeks. Also, and this is ticky tack, but I think most people in Houston will be distracted by the Astros, who play Friday and Saturday in the World Series. I don't think there'll be a lot of fans Sunday in that stadium for a losing team. So I don't think there's really a home field advantage here.
It's an angle I didn't think of, but good call. And then my last pick in this window is San Francisco -1.5. San Francisco beats LA every time. Pick San Francisco -1.5. 75% of the tickets on San Francisco, 91% of the cash.
Okay, I don't hate it. For record, I went 7-3 last week, up 5 units because Mike and I both hit that Cardinals over and -2.5 parlay. I put that in, put actually decent amount of money on that. It was good. So covered Commanders, covered Titans. I'm opposite of you on the Rams, and there's no logic behind this other than eventually they have to win against the 49ers. I don't know
They
how
do it
else
in
to
the
say that.
playoffs. They do it in the playoffs. That's where they do it. They
Yeah,
don't do it in the regular season.
look, I'm probably going to get hurt by this because the logic dictates if the 49ers always beat them and they now have Christian McCaffrey, why wouldn't they beat him again? I don't. This is just a guess, honestly. I think the Rams need it. Hungry dogs run faster. I think the Rams come out on top as what opened up as a favorite and then switched to an underdog because of how the line has moved. And then
Are the Rams off a bye?
they are, I
Okay.
believe. Yes, they were on a bye last week.
So there's your angle.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think they perform poorly by any stretch of the imagination. Um, so I believe in the Rams. I think they, if early buy might have helped them a lot. And then my last pick for this slate, I have to start putting respect on the Giants' name. I didn't believe them. They still might be not contenders for the Super Bowl, but they are a good team and they're playing like fierce competitors. I know this is a rat line and I don't care. I don't see how they are 3-point underdogs to the Seattle Seahawks, who are uh, they're okay. I think this is the battle of mid, where it's the meme where it's just two teams who I think are average or below average. The Giants have at least proven themselves to be above average. I'm taking the Giants here, even on the West Coast, for the 4 p.m. slate. All right, moving on. Last two primetime games. First one is Packers at Bills. Packers are 11.5-point underdogs. Woof, that's a lot. The over/under is 47.5, so that's a bit of a dichotomy where at least Vegas thinks there might be a high-scoring game. And then Bengals at Browns. Bengals are 3-point favorites. Browns are underdogs at home. Spread is 3, over/under 47. Mike.
I've only got one play here, and it's Green Bay and Buffalo under 47.5. The logic here, I guess, is that both of these defenses are pretty good. Buffalo, especially coming off a bye, playing a not so great offense, and I think this is sort of inverse because of the huge spread. If you think this game goes under, you think Green Bay is going to cover. I actually think it's the opposite. I think this game goes under, but I think there's a chance that it's like 30-10 sort of game where Buffalo wins this game comfortably, but the total stays under the number. So, and really the layman's logic here, and we're beating a dead horse, but 56% of the tickets are on the over public ticket. 99% of the Vegas cash is on the under. 99. You never see that. So I add all that up. Somebody knows something I don't. Take the under here. I don't know whether or not Buffalo covers. My gut says yes. Like I said, I think you could see this game be something like 27-10, even a 24-10. Buffalo maybe doesn't have an overwhelmingly dominant offensive performance, or maybe they get up early and just put it on cruise control. But ultimately, I think they win. I don't see how Green Bay wins this game. There is a world where they make it competitive, but I do love the under here. I think the only avenue for this game to be truly like Rodgers is not winning a shootout against Buffalo. So the only way that Green Bay keeps this game close is for it to go under two. And I think even in a win, Buffalo probably keeps this under the number just by the way they play defense against an offense that can't pass the ball. So like the Green Bay didn't have a third down conversion of their own volition last week.
Mm-hmm.
They did not have one. They only got a first down on third down because of penalties.
Right.
Um, they can't afford to do that against Buffalo. So, um, yeah, all that added up, Green Bay Buffalo under 47.5.
I concur with that pick. I don't like taking Buffalo at 10.5. I think that's just a little too high, although they've covered it in the past. You never want to be betting against what you expected to be a good team coming into game 8 where they're not playing well, but then all of a sudden now they break away. So I'm not touching the line. I will take the under 47.5. I also have 4 plays for the Browns Bengals.
Wow.
Yes. All right. And I don't think you can parlay this, but this is the bet. Browns Bengals under 47. I think the Bengals will put up most of those points, but I don't think the Browns put up enough to go over 47. I also have Bengals -3. Bengals first half. I believe that line's going to be like 1.5 to 2, and then live bet whatever. So first game is -3 and first half is -2.5. I'm taking those both. And then whatever the second half spread is after that game starts and it's halftime, I'm taking that. The Browns have let up an average of 2 points a quarter in the second half of football. They have allowed 1 touchdown in 8 games.
Jeez.
Uh, this is like whoever like the and we haven't talked about this enough. I'm sorry, not the Browns, the Bengals.
Yeah.
I'm losing my mind. The Bengals have let up 1 touchdown and an average of 2.5 points per quarter. So 1 touchdown total in the 7 games they've played so far. They are the most underrated defense at adjusting to what's on the field. It's the reason they got to the Super Bowl aside from Joe Burrow. It's the reason they're going to continue to succeed, and I think they're going to make the playoffs and go on a run again. I'm calling my shot here. I think they've shaken off the Super Bowl hangover. The Browns are going to dominate, or the Bengals are going to dominate the Browns. I can't do 2 B teams. It fucks me up. The Bengals are going to dominate the Browns. The Browns are a bad team. The Bengals are a good team. This will be the go for it and show it. I am placing a heavy wager on Bengals -3. I don't have a parlay for this week. I do have one more bet that I will talk about here. This is not football related. Austin FC is in the conference semifinals for the MLS Cup, or they won the conference semifinals. They're in the conference finals now. They are a good team against the best team in the league, and they're +300 to advance. I am taking them +300 to advance, specifically because they're a good team. They played well all year. They were second in the conference. They're now going to LA for the conference championship to get in the MLS Cup. They have a great group of strikers, a fantastic goalie. Take the shot, +300. Austin FC to go to the championship game. Mike, anything to add?
Nope.
All right, well, that's been our show. Thanks for watching. Tune in every week. We do one college football show, one NFL show, both posted before the Thursday night football game most of the time. That's been Stupid versus the Spread. Like and subscribe, and thanks very much for watching.